What's up? Do you wish things just went faster? Like, you have an idea about where you want to be and then bam, you're there, but everything just doesn't really work that way. Well, you're in luck because today we're going to talk about why are things so slow. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Danny here with my buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
Yo, Danny.
Well, I know we've been both kind of dealing with this on and off pretty much forever.
Mm-hmm.
But there's lots of things, right? There's lots of things we want to do in life, but it's like you get these ideas, and I think this is what kills me. I don't know. Let me know if you feel the same way, right? You have this idea of where you want to be. It's like you can see it, you can envision it, you kind of know what it looks like, and you think that the point from getting from here to there will be relative. Like we just underestimate the time so egregiously. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll take like a year, but it takes like 10, or it's like
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. I don't know. Have you been
Yeah.
struggling with that too?
Oh yeah. 100%. It almost inevitably takes way longer than I think it's going to take. But I actually want to start by telling a story.
Okay,
So a number of
story
years
time.
ago, yeah, Danny and I were chatting, and I asked, well, if you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
I
And
still stand by this.
I know. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, cool superhero powers, like invisibility. You can go wherever you want, do whatever you want. People can't see. That's where I'm thinking. And Danny says, oh, the ability to be able to touch a book and know everything that's inside. And I'm
It'd be
like,
awesome.
that would be the coolest thing ever. Yeah.
Right?
So,
You know so much. I
yeah.
wish that. But it'd be
Yeah.
so because I read a lot and it takes a long time to read.
But what happens?
Even if you
What happens
go
if it's
ahead.
like you ever hear that thing about the person who touches a thing and it turns into gold, but then like everything
Midas.
they touch, yeah, everything they touch turns into gold. So like what if that happened with things that you couldn't stop yourself from learning when you touch it? So like you accidentally touch something and you're like, "Oh,
Uh,
I didn't want to read that Fabio book." And
yeah,
like
that might be bad. I mean, I guess at some point, I wonder how I always wondered too, like if you could do that, like would there be a limit on how much, like, would you max your brain capacity out at some point? Because I'm sure if you did it really fast, right? I mean, the brain takes time to process things. I always wonder what happened.
hmm.
'Cause you ever hear those theories on like I've heard like theories on like experience where like some argue that like our brain remembers literally everything. And I always wondered like is there a capacity? Because like I should look into that sometime. Anyways.
Well, we only use a fraction of what we actually have. And with neuroplasticity, you essentially can rewire your brain. So like
You can
maybe
rewire it, you can grow new cell. I know you can grow
so
new brain cells
so
too,
it could
yeah.
almost be like rewiring it to work more efficiently. Because
Oh, yeah.
don't you also find that like the more stuff you learn, the more it all relates to everything else?
Well, it
And
does,
so,
right? Because
yeah.
it's all overlaps. There's always connections. That's true, right? So the more like even if you were just doing stories, right? The more you encounter, the more you realize how similar they are. They
You're
follow
like,
similar
oh, the
patterns.
hero's tale again.
Yeah, he's
Every
going on a
single
journey. Oh, he's gonna reject it at first and struggle.
oh, another iteration of Shakespeare. Okay, great.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is true, right? I mean, I guess that's yeah. So it's like all you really need to remember is like some details, not really the whole thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, it is kind of interesting, isn't it? It's pretty amazing that we can even remember anything
Yeah.
when you think about
But
it.
back to your point from beginning, yeah, we've both been struggling recently with not being able to learn fast enough. And I would say arguably we're both pretty fast learners. But
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
just
yeah.
like, yeah, there's like a governor where like it just doesn't allow you to go any
Well,
faster. Ain't that
it's
right,
not just
governor?
isn't that right, gosh? It's not just learning to, it's like everything is because like we're learning so we can like do other things, right? And it's like, and I think that's the other thing that I think gets in the way too is like, I know I want to do these things to make better my life, and I can see that, imagine what that life will be like, and I would better the situation for myself, and my partner, all that, whatever. And it's like, and you want it to happen now because it's like, in the interim is hard. You're still in the process, and like things might incrementally get better, but like you just want to get to that point. But it takes time, and man, it's
Well,
always so
is
hard
that
getting there.
part of the problem is doing it for the sake of something else? Like I was thinking about this a few weeks ago, where I was like, I was looking at my end goals, like the things that I actually want to do. And I was like, well, if I keep doing what I'm doing, they're going to happen.
Yes,
But by
yes,
that point, I'll be that much older. And do I really want to be that much older right now? And it's like, nah.
no,
So how about just trying to enjoy
enjoy
the
the
journey?
journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, No, I think you're right. No, there is something to that. Like you got to enjoy the process. And I think if you're doing stuff you like, it's easier to enjoy the process. But there always is that frustration, right? Because even if you enjoy it, and especially if you enjoy what you're doing, I think sometimes it makes it harder because you want to be better at it faster. And there's always going to be obstacles and things like that. I mean, for me, that's a big part of it is like, it's not just the learning, it's also, I just, I don't know. There's days where I really do just like can enjoy the journey. And there's other days where it is like you just get frustrated, I think, and you just want the outcome.
Well, it's also like a double-edged sword nowadays of these. I think probably like the internet and social media makes it where number one, it's easier to learn than ever because the resources
Oh,
abound.
dude, I remember just
But
when we were in college having to go to this library, it took forever to find stuff. Like sometimes you
Mhm.
spend hours just wasting time looking and the thing isn't even there, Like,
Yeah. But the
yeah,
downside of it is there's so many more examples of people who appear to be so much better than you. And so you're so it and it's
yeah,
like it's a real big trap because you look at them and you're like, they have that thing that I want. That's not fair. Why can't I have their life? But you're also not seeing everything else in their life that they're
no,
absolutely terrible at and all the bad stuff in their life. You're just seeing this one thing that they're good at. And yeah,
that's always a good thing. It's like, would you accept the whole life? Because by and large, no, most people wouldn't, I think, for things. I think the other thing that screws us up too, I'm glad you brought that up, was like we we're now in contemporary life, right? Money is the marker of everything. Success, happy, everything, right? Even though it's not a good value marker for that, but it is. And it's easy to see, right? You can easily equate, or calculate somebody's wealth and all. I think one of the problems now too is there's so many examples of people getting young, and getting like Zuckerberg and stuff like they become billionaires super young, and then everybody else it's like, well, oh man, I didn't become a billionaire when I was 18, so my life's over. And it's like, you know yeah, okay, he made a lot of money early on, he got very lucky, it was good timing, all that stuff, he built the thing, but it's like you're only looking at one aspect of his life, and he only got that opportunity because he already knew how to do the stuff, was already doing it. I forget who said it. It might have been Franklin or somebody, but that idea that, or Jefferson, some one of those guys, that we don't, it's not that we have luck. Our luck is really created by the
Lincoln,
opportunities.
the harder I
And
work, the luckier I get.
there you go. Thank
There you
you.
go.
And it was
Yeah.
one of
Yeah, one of
those
those old guys that's
guys.
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's I'm glad you brought that up about the money thing because I actually saw an advertisement for some financial company that they said something along the lines of like we create happiness. And I was like somebody should sue them for false advertising
I
because
know, right?
that there's so many studies that prove that money does not equal
Yeah.
happiness. Up to a certain
Nope.
level, it can increase a little bit, but that level is so low. And most of the
Well,
people
it's a
who
good,
are aspirationally trying to get more money are well beyond that level to where any increase in money actually provides an increase in happiness.
It's like one of the worst things we did by making money the measure of everything. Because no, you're right. Like, yeah, if you're dead broke, some money will definitely better you in the sense that it'll relieve stress, pressure, this the fear of not having enough food, that kind of things. And there is a direct, very real benefit there. But beyond that, it just diminishes so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like people get caught in this trap of like, well, if everything's about money, you can always have more money, and there's always gonna be somebody with more money than you, and blah blah blah, right?
Yeah, and you
It's
can lose the
absurd.
money, and the governments can print more money, so your money
And
can
people can take your
devalue.
money.
Yeah, yeah, all this stuff. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy.
What was this topic? I forgot.
Why things are so slow.
Yeah,
I know,
there we go.
right? And
But
why we get distracted so much.
think, you know, I also this was like more of an esoteric answer to the question, but like I also heard one time why things happen so slowly because if they didn't, everything would happen all at once, and then you wouldn't be able to appreciate it.
I mean, that's a pretty good point, right? What
Yeah.
the hell would we do?
Yeah,
Like,
like if everything you wanted was just done, then you'd be like, well, what the heck?
shit.
Now what am I supposed to do?
Did you ever see that movie Click with Adam
Yeah,
Sandler
yeah,
and
that was a good
what's
one.
his name? Yeah, where like the
Christopher
idea like
Walken.
yeah, yeah. Christopher Walken gives him like a remote control. He can skip through like crappy parts of his life and stuff, but he ends up like skipping everything. And I think that's kind of like what would happen. Like you'd miss all this stuff that's life. I think that's the other thing. We focus too much on the outcome instead of the so what we focus on is not life. We miss out on the life part, the living, which is the learning, the struggle, all of that. I'm always reminded, I always like try to remind myself what Nietzsche said about suffering, which was like, it can be a good thing if you just flip your perspective on it. Like, it's an opportunity to overcome yourself, to learn something new. Like, every moment of suffering is also an opportunity to live better, right? To learn something, to do something differently. And I think we focus so much on the outcome that it really does make us miss out on living our lives at all.
Hmm. Yeah,
Because think about how
absolutely.
many people too, like, they focus on like what they don't have, what other people have, and then they do nothing.
Oof,
And
that's
it's
the
like, so
worst.
you're just, yeah, right? You're just basically making your life, you're making yourself fail because, you don't have everything right now.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
And I think maybe there is like a limit to how fast we can go too, just in the sense that we're human beings, right? I mean, it's like, like it's like a car, right? Every car has a limit to its speed of how fast it can go, how safe it's going to be at a certain speed. And that's probably true of us too. We're biological entities. Like we can only do so much in a day. We can only do so much in a week. I always like that thing you said, where like, we what is it? We always overestimate what we can do in like a day or a week, but underestimate what we can do in like a year or a
Bill
decade.
Gates. We overestimate
Okay.
what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in a decade.
Which is a good saying. And I would even say like we overestimate what we can do in a day, in a
Hmm.
week, and I think when you start to look a little bit further out, as long as you put the time in, you'll get there. That's one of the coolest things I think is like about learning in general or about development or about doing anything. Is like as long as we commit to it, it'll probably happen. It's just going to take a little bit of time and
Well,
dedication.
that's a good point, is that because things require time and energy, you actually need to focus and find out what's important to you and what's valuable to you.
Oh yeah. Yes, you do the right things and don't waste your time in a sense, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because that feeling sucks too. That's the hard thing. I remember, we both transitioned jobs. I remember thinking back, like that feeling, like, did I waste my time doing that? And it's like, well, no, because I got a lot out of it still, so that's good.
Hmm.
But if I never made that choice, then I would have been stagnated, right? You would have been stuck, and
Yeah.
that would have been horrible.
Yeah, I'm convinced that we did not make the wrong decision. And here's why. Because before we actually did it, there's this dude Naval Ravikant who's like very wealthy. He created, I think, like AngelList or something like that. But anyways, very wealthy investor, but also like kind of thought leader, very smart in terms of how he thinks. And he was saying how, it would be more beneficial for the entire world if every 10 years or every 20 years we could stop what we're doing and then take 5 years to learn a new skill. Because
That
it's
would be
just
amazing.
it's
Yeah.
just totally detrimental to learn something and then be stuck in that for now like 40, 50, 60 years because technology changes so quickly.
Well, also beyond that, like most people live way longer than they did in the past. And we work a lot longer now too, because most of our jobs are not as there are jobs still that are physically demanding that take a toll on the body that you can't do forever, but a lot of jobs are not like that. You can do them pretty much indefinitely. And I think one of the biggest problems is too is we forget that our working life is so much longer now that it's also kind of absurd to think that you're going to pick something at 18 and that's what you're going to do forever. Like you're not going to want to do any other things, any other stuff, any other careers. Like it almost seems like it's reasonable nowadays to switch careers at some point because you have such a like you could literally do 20 years, switch careers, do another full career, and still have time to do something else if you wanted to. Like it's insane.
Yeah,
And I think we forget how much time we actually have and what that equates to relative to our lives.
very true. Yeah, we have a long working life. And like if it's from like 20 until 70, that's 50 years of working.
Yeah.
And if you consider it takes roughly 10 years to master a skill, so that means you could have two careers where you not only became a master in it, but then worked in it as long as it took you to become a master. So like that's 20 years, that's
Yeah.
40 years to do that twice. And then you have another time where you become a master, but you just don't get to finish out working in it. So
You
that's
maybe get
like
to do it as
three
a hobby or
times that you
something.
could, yeah, three
Yeah.
times you could be a master in what you're doing.
Well, I think about that a lot. In the past when like the average lifespan was like 40, like it made sense you wanted to have kids relatively quickly because
Hmm.
your life expectancy was short and you had to do something just to survive, right? it wasn't even really a matter of choosing like what's good for you or what you love. Like it was
Yeah.
like, this is here, I'm going to do this because I need to eat.
Hmm.
And I think we're such a kind of like privileged position in that respect, but also it can be very hard because you get that like decision paralysis, right? You're afraid of making decisions because there's so many options. And I think you're right. Like we have to know what matters to us to live it right.
Isn't that crazy that like pretty much up until the 1970s or something like that, just having food was like a concern. And then ever since then, we've gone so far in the opposite direction. We have like a crazy obesity epidemic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, dude, it's like you can get, I mean, the fact that you can get anything any time of year. Like there's no,
Delivery. You don't even
yeah,
need to
I mean,
leave the
you don't
couch.
even leave your house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really nuts. And I think, but we don't, because that's part of our world, we don't even see it anymore. I think
Mhm.
it's just there,
Yeah, that's exactly. That's discounting the positive.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, great
I remember when
example
all
of
that
it.
started. I remember in the pandemic when all that delivery crap started. I was like, "What the hell are you can deliver?" And I was like, at the time, like, "Oh, that's kind of neat, I guess, because nobody can leave their houses, so whatever." And they just kept going on, and like, yeah, it's interesting. I forget constantly it's
Dude,
even
now
there.
I forget what it was like to actually go out and pick up food because just order it so often that it's like,
And it's so convenient.
yeah,
Like it was like that
yeah.
food shows up.
Like
Yeah,
if I
it's
think
great.
hard about it, yeah, you'd have to go there, you'd drive there, you'd get there, it wouldn't be ready, you'd have to wait, there'd be all these other people waiting, and then yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Hmm.
But yeah, things take. I mean, they do. I think that's also we're constantly looking for ways to shortcut things to make things easier, and
Oh.
in our own lives doesn't work. Yeah,
Here's another. So things take time, but time doesn't exist. So
some would
like,
argue it does, I guess, but like, yeah,
but
no,
like
I know what you mean.
time,
It's relative. It's a perspective thing,
but
right?
but it's all just is. But you can't like show me time because
Oh, yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
relies on like something that happened before or something that happens after and never actually exists right now. So like the fact that things take time, maybe it's just they say all of man's problems come because he can't just sit still and do nothing. Maybe it's
Yep,
just because we can't sit still and be patient. And
yeah,
I heard that, if patience was easy, it wouldn't be a virtue.
that's true of most virtues.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny. The the time thing's funny too, because it is. It's weird. Like we only live in the moment. This is all we have is right now.
Yeah.
And like our memory is notoriously bad. It's constantly being refined, modified, changed, and our perception of the future is usually pretty bad. So it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, that is kind of funny, right? We're stuck in the now, but we
Yeah.
constantly want things in the future to be now. That is a
Yeah.
conundrum.
It's a big one.
Huh. So
Cool.
there you have it, I guess, right? Yeah. All
Yep.
right. So why everything's so slow? I have no idea if we even answered that question. But that aside, if you did like this episode, we'll be back later this week with another one. And we have hundreds of episodes. So check them out. Like, share, subscribe. Check them out on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, though, later, Randy.
Later, Danny.